All right, Eli, a lot to talk about, but let's start off by talking about shoulder pads. You are now a minority owner in a company called XTECH. Tell us about why this was an appealing investment for you and your background with the company.
Yeah, I think it's very appealing just because of my passion around football and everything related to it. And I wore XTECH pads when I played here for the Giants, starting in 2014. It's a fairly new company. It just started in 2012, but learned early on that they were very innovative in what they were doing with the safety of their pads, but also the mobility, the flexibility, so important for a quarterback. And since then, kind of watched their journey. They've gone on to really dominate the NFL and the college market from the shoulder pad standpoint, and want to help to continue that journey as they explore into high school and expanding this business, and want to make sure that it's not just the NFL and the college guys that are getting the best equipment, that everyone that's passionate about football, wants to play football, has availability of the best product out there.
So tell me about how the actual deal came together.
Well, just have known the company, known Bob Broderick, who's one of the owners of it. He convinced me to wear these pads in 2014, and so just have talked to him, known him for that whole time, kept up with them. They're local right here in New Jersey, and so always asking, hey, how's the company, how y'all doing? Try to be helpful whenever possible, and just said, hey, is there anything I can do to help, anything I can get involved in? And that's why had the opportunity to invest and be an equity partner in this, but also not a silent one. I want to, hey, can I be a spokesperson? Can I use contacts that I have to help expand this, help grow this, and make sure people know about it? And the landscape is changing. When I was in high school, I showed up for the first day of practice. They gave me a pair of pads and a helmet, and you went out there. You didn't question it. You didn't know what you were wearing, and those pads just got passed on down and down. Now, parents are more involved. Schools are, have a bigger budget where they can buy some pads, and the parents hear about it, and they want to get their kids in the best stuff, in the pads that are, one, going to keep them safe and keep them protected, and two, help them perform at a higher level. So understanding that landscape and try to help them and grow this business.
So if you've played football, I'm sure you know all about shoulder pads, but if you don't play football or have never played, explain the process about, you mentioned Bob sort of convinced you to wear the pads. What was the pitch? Like, in other words, as a quarterback, for instance, what are you looking for out of a pad?
I think the number one thing from a quarterback stance is a lot of your practices as a quarterback all summer, you're not throwing with pads on. You're just throwing with nothing on, a t-shirt on. During training camp, some practices you wear pads, some you don't. And so I found that all summer I'm throwing one way, all of a sudden you put on these big bulky pads and you don't have the same mobility, flexibility, your arm angle's at a different, and it feels, it's a different throwing motion. All of a sudden it's something you've been practicing all year round. And so I found with XTECH, you still got the same protection and better protection, but also more mobility in my arm, where it didn't feel any different throwing with pads to without pads. And that was the biggest key to me. You wanted to stay safe. The most important thing as an athlete is availability. You got to be there for practice, you got to be there for games, and you got to stay available. Second is performance, and being able to perform at your highest level. And I felt with these pads, I was getting the protection I needed, but also it was going to help me perform at a higher level, and that was a selling point. And I think a lot of NFL and college athletes have been sold on that as well.
I was surprised to hear that the league did not mandate the use of either XTECH or another company's pads, because you think about these leagues and how much control they typically have over, you have to wear this uniform, or the grass needs to be a certain way, or am I wrong in that confusion? Did that surprise you also?
Well, I think it's under the jersey. You don't always see the shoulder pads being worn, and I think there was so much concern, obviously, on the safety of the players, but it was head up. They were worried about the helmets, and that was really kind of how XTECH got into this business. Very, very little innovation, kind of neck down on the pads, on the safety of the players, and they used that opportunity to say nothing's been changed. Hey, we have a new product. We have something that's lighter, that's better, more mobility, more flexibility, more breathable, that the players are going to love. And that's really how they started. They started in the NFL because of their connections, because of some of their expertise that in the equipment room, that they got the players wearing it. Other players saw it, heard about it, they tried it out, and it was really a word of mouth, kind of how it spread through the NFL, through the leagues, and came down to the colleges, and now as we continue down to the high school level.
A couple years ago, you got into the private equity business. This investment is your own individual investment, though, correct?
Correct, right.
How do you make that determination? Should this be a PE investment? Should this be my own investment?
Well, this is just a personal relationship that I've had with XTECH. I know the product. I use the product. I believe in it, and wanted to help in some way. And this is kind of an opportunity to me to get involved because I believe in it, and I think it's going to continue to grow, and that I personally wanted to be very involved in that growth.
I want to talk about some of your other business aspirations too. Let's start with the team ownership category, because you're starting to rack them up a little bit, right? You've got NWSL, minority stake, TGL, you have a minority stake. I know you're looking at a minority stake in the Giants, correct? Let me stop there for a second.
Sure.
How far along is that one?
It's the Giants ones. Basically it's too expensive for me. I mean, these numbers are getting very big.
Even a 1% stake?
Yeah, a 1% stake is something valued at $10 billion. It turns into a very big number. So, I love the Giants, and I think it, is deserving of that valuation. And there'll be people that want to go for it. And I was kind of along the ride, but it really is a matter of just some complications with the fact that I'm doing broadcasting. I wouldn't be able to talk to the players. I coach in the Pro Bowl. I do a high school football camp where college guys come. There's going to be a lot of conflicts, and it was going to affect my day job, so kind of had to pull out of the Giants deal, but still, obviously I'm here and have access, and still very involved in the Giants.
Why did you invest in those two leagues? Are you doing it as an investment, like, hey, I think this is a way that I can make some money, or is there something else that's going into the calculation?
I think both of them are passion plays, and I kind of like investing, personally investing in things I'm passionate about. I want to help, I want to get involved in, I want to help grow the business and have some impact on it. And for women's soccer, I have 3 girls who are all athletes. None of them actually play soccer, but they play, whether it's swimming and lacrosse and tennis and ice hockey. I mean, they're in all sorts of sports. And when I was playing for the Giants, I'd bring teammates over for dinner, and I'd bring Saquon Barkley or Odell Beckham. My kids had no interest in seeing those guys, but when I brought them to a Gotham FC soccer game or brought them to a practice and they got to meet these girls as professional soccer players, they loved it. They were amazed by it, and I was like, well, this is an opportunity. I want to bring them around. Got to know the ownership and had the opportunity to invest and to say I would love to help out in any way. I'd love to bring my girls around, and for them to have role models, to be around these girls, to hear their stories, and to watch them perform at the highest level. If they ever want to be an athlete, that's great. I'm never forcing them to, but to have that access and just growing the game of women's sports, not just for soccer, but for all these sports, is amazing to see.
You also have a relationship with Caitlin Clark, right? Both Excel
Yes.
clients. So there's got to be part of you, though, that's thinking, man, it seems like if I invest now in women's sports, like I could be getting kind of early in on something that has a huge upward growth trajectory, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's always, when you invest in anything, there's always the hope that it continues to grow and it's a good investment, but it's still a matter of, I think, growing the games around women's sports. And I think it's just amazing how what's changed in the last 25 years or 20 years. When I grew up in high school, you never saw hardly a woman's game on TV playing a sport. Sometimes around the Olympics you saw some soccer, but now women's basketball, women's soccer, everything going on in that space. It's normal to see women playing professional sports, not just for girls watching, but for boys. It's just like in high school sports, there weren't as many girls playing high school sports back now. Now you have flag football, you have lacrosse, you have all these women's sports that are expanding, and just that availability and just the normalcy of it is really inspiring.
So you're out on the Giants deal. Are there other sports teams that you may start to be thinking about? Is there a way that I can take a minority stake?
Nothing currently in the mix. So always keeping your eyes open. But I think for the most part, the football play was again a personal thing with the Giants. I played for the Giants. I would never be interested in buying another professional football team. Gotham FC, they play right here in New Jersey. They're 15 minutes. They practice 15 minutes from my house. It was a way to get my girls, get them involved. The TGL, the New York golf team. I'm a big golf fan, so knew a lot of the current players that were on the team and had the opportunity and kind of an alternate way to play golf. I kind of do that. And my announcing, kind of an alternate way of announcing, so just expanding the games in different ways.
I was looking at, because we spoke a few months ago remotely, or it was, I don't know, what do you remember that was, 6 months ago plus, and we talked a little bit about NIL. And you had said at the time, look, like I'm a little bit, I have some reservations about this because it kind of cuts at the more traditional, you go to a team, you play for that team, you don't transfer, you stick with it. I looked at the rankings for which college athletes were predicted to make the most amount of money next year. And your nephew is number one. So I was thinking, have you had any conversations with him? Because he's got to be loving this if he's making millions of dollars now in a situation where he never would have been able to get paid before.
Well, yeah, I mean, I talked to my nephew a good bit and spent some time with him, and I think he's handled the situation very well because he picked his college where he wanted to go play football, not based on money or NIL. He said, where is the best program? Where am I going to be coached? Where am I going to be happy? If I never play one down of football, will I be happy at this school? And hey, he went there, he redshirted, he sat a year. Now in his third year, he has an opportunity to be the starting quarterback, played in some games last year when Quinn Ewers was injured and played well. So he's waited his time. He's done everything the right way. Everybody was asking, will he transfer because he wasn't going to be the starter next year? No, he's at a happy place. He's being coached. He has time to develop. And so now, he gets the benefit from NIL, and I'm fine with players getting paid. It's more the transfer stuff. It's more the, hey, go earn it. Don't pick your college based on who someone's going to pay you a little bit more money if it's not a situation where you're going to be happy. You don't like your teammates. You don't like your coaches. It's far from home. All the things that come into the decision making of where you're going to college are being ignored now. And it's no surprise that after a year, if you're not happy and you want to leave, that's what's going to occur. So I'm proud of how he's handled that, and now his number one concern is still going out there in the field, playing football, trying to win games.
One or two more football questions, but I do want to ask you, you have your own production company, 10 Till. I Googled Eli Manning Production Company. You know what comes up? Omaha Productions, not your actual production company. Your brother's was Omaha. A lot of people don't know that. Obviously, the Manning cast is under Omaha. I'm just curious from a business perspective, why did you and your brother decide, look, I want separate companies here, when you obviously sort of have a flagship content production entity that exists underneath Omaha?
Well, I think obviously Peyton started Omaha first, and really just in the last year started mine, just because I found that I was doing projects that are very specific to me, and that I could have done, but I was bringing it to Omaha and saying, hey, can you do it? Because I trust you and I know your people, and I want y'all to be a part of this if I'm doing it. And it's really the conversation I had with Peyton and Omaha, saying, well, you should probably start your own. We can help you kind of get started and give you some infrastructure. And if there's things we're working on together, or there's things that we see that don't work for Omaha that might work for you, then we can pass it on to 10 Till and what you're doing. So we still work very closely together, but just having the opportunity to do things that are very specific to me, or if I want to go things in a different direction, I have that availability.
All right. I want to end with some football questions. We're sitting in the Giants practice facility. Let's talk about the Giants for this coming year. Two quarterbacks at the top, sort of, with Jackson Dart and Russell Wilson. Let's start with Russell. How do you think Russell Wilson is going to perform in New York City? And sort of part two to that question is, playing in New York has to be different from playing in other cities. Obviously, you only played for New York when you were playing in the NFL. But I'm curious if you have advice for Russell Wilson about playing in New York that maybe you don't know if you're playing in other cities.
Well, I think Russell has the advantage that he's played a lot of football. He's won Super Bowls. He's been in Pro Bowls. He's been at the top. And so, you know, he's not going to feel the pressure of New York City like Jackson Dart will when he, you know, gets his opportunity, whenever that might come. Just when you're going from college, you're going from a small market in Ole Miss, and now you're in New York City. Instead of a couple beat writers, you have 10 beat writers, you have multiple papers, you're going to be on every talk show no matter what happens. If you have a great game, they're going to say you're the greatest, and you know, you're going to be a future Hall of Famer, and then the next week you have a bad game and they say you're going to be a bust.
I guess Russell Wilson's already lived through all of that stuff. Yeah.
Russell's done that. He's going to do it. He's not going to kind of buy into the ebbs and flows of a season, and so he's, you know, mentally tough and mentally prepared to handle whatever occurs. And so, you know, I think that's why this is a good plan. Have Russell. He's the guy. He's the starter. Let Jackson come in here, feel things out, see how a season goes, see how the preparation works. Because I think it's tough when you come to New York and you struggle early on, which every young quarterback for the most part is going to do. It affects your confidence, and some of them never overcome that.
I'm curious if you feel like your style of play at quarterback, which was mainly a pocket passer, if we are now sort of at the end of the line for that. And that really, this is not a fad, the mobile quarterback, but it really is the position and will be the core position for the next 10, 20, 30 years.
I think so. I mean, I think you're just seeing quarterbacks, you know, have to be able to extend plays. They got to be able to move in the pocket. They got to be able to, you know, not necessarily have to run a ton, but they have to be able to get 4 or 5 yards, you know, or, you know, move out of the pocket, be able to scramble, be able to throw on the run. So you're seeing, you know, those quarterbacks that are more, I guess, you know, athletic and have the ability to kind of play above the X's and O's in a sense. And, you know, and it's, you know, it might be a guy, I mean, Josh Allen or Joe Burrow, especially Joe, like, you might not say, hey, he's a scrambler, but he does extend plays. He does, you know, move around a little bit, but I would still consider him a pocket passer.
Sure.
He wants to stay in the pocket, but if things break down, he has the ability to make plays.
You know, it reminds me because one thing I wanted to ask you, when you were playing, I think things have shifted a little bit more towards sports betting from fantasy in the past couple of years in terms of the focus. But were your teammates ever so obsessed with fantasy stats that it kind of got in the way of the game plan at all?
No, I don't think the players ever worried about fantasy stats. You heard it from the fans a little bit. You know, you're walking around after a big win. You won 21-20 versus Dallas, and you're excited. And the next, you know, week you're at the dinner and you know, someone says, hey, you know, what happened last week? And you're like, what? We won. Yeah, but you only threw 1 touchdown and you only got me 14 points on fantasy. It was like, yeah, that's not really the point of my job, is to get you fantasy points. It's for us to win football games, and the vice versa. You lose a game, but you throw 5 touchdowns and someone's happy about you. So I think, you know, you kind of see it from that perspective, but it never affected the play or the mentality. Guys want to perform well. Guys want to win. They all want catches. They all want touchdowns. That's just, you know, part of, you know, your competitiveness, but it wasn't for fantasy football.
Does the gambling aspect worry you at all in terms of the integrity of the league? We're starting to see like a little more scandals bubble up in other sports. The NFL has largely been unaffected, but part of me thinks maybe it's just only a matter of time.
Well, I think the NFL has done a great job of talking to the players, make them understand that, hey, you can have no association with this. We got to, you cannot affect the integrity of the game. You can't bet on anything. You just, hey, stay away, go play football, keep it at that. And because of that, it has stayed safe, and that's the #1 priority.
Are the Giants making the playoffs this year?
I think the Giants will make the playoffs. I'm always optimistic. Obviously, this is my team, this is my home team, and who I root for. But I think just with the free agencies that they have, the current players, I think they'll be great on defense. I think they have some young talent that really emerged last year. Bringing in Russell, a veteran quarterback, he's going to be able to make plays and get him off to a fast start.
And a July Super Bowl prediction right now.
July Super Bowl prediction, of course. I think it's going to be a New York Super Bowl. We got Giants and Bills.
Giants and Bills.
There you go.
Well, if you're right on that one, someone's going to make a lot of money gambling. Hopefully not a player. Eli, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Alex. Appreciate it.